Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Coinmancy. Hey there. A couple years ago I requested a Spiral Architect Insect. You did a great analysis I've watched many times. It's been long enough that I think it's time for the next track in the same lone album they released. This song is Cloud Constructor. I look forward to your critique and the comments from all the viewers. This album's now 25 years old to me, and to me still sounds brand new. Unfortunately, you can't even listen to this album on any streaming service. It's a crime against humanity. Thanks for your time. So I actually went and looked this up because I was given this link, which is for some random YouTube channel. I was like, dang, there's got to be a better version. I went and looked on Bandcamp. They're not on there at all. I went and looked on Spotify. They are there, but there's no albums. So that usually means it's geo-restricted. So I went and looked through a little bit of the API, and it's not available in any market. At one time it might have been, which is why the files are there, but I couldn't even VPN to another country in order to get access to them. As far as I can tell, the only way to listen to this is to own a copy of the CD, which is, it's just wild in 2024 that something is just completely erased from the internet. So anyways, we're going to dive into this and check out some Spiral Architect, Cloud Constructor. Nice little 3 here. Ooh. There's a 4. Yeah, so probably 12/8 would be my guess on the time signature here. Oh, what is that? So there's a 7. Which explains why the last one I couldn't figure out. 14/8 makes sense on that. Push into the offbeats, back to the downbeats. This is harmonically interesting too. Somewhere between Queensryche and Dream Theater is where I kind of place this sonically. Whoa. of awkward as far as melody goes, but I love the sound of this bass guitar with the harmonics. The long guitar notes that are gradually gaining and lowering in volume, it's a nice touch on top of this. Beautiful little section.
God hides within the machines.
And that goes into... Wait, I thought... Okay, there's still another minute. A little bit of Phrygian dominant. That bass is massive. Yeah. What do I even say about this? Well, if you like prog metal, you probably enjoyed that quite a bit. Um, time. Time. Let's start with time. It's time to talk about time. There's so much time wonkiness in here. Seriously, like, we have the 3 that the song feels like it starts on, and then the drums and guitar come in and cement a slower 4. That's 3 against 4 time feel. Like I said, I'd wager 12/8 for that. It's a nice way of putting both the 3 pulse and the 4 pulse into sheet music in a way that's readable for both of them without using odd tuplets in order to put everything together. And from there, it only got wilder. We had a section that might have been 14/8, might have been 15/8. It's really tough to count. And that led us into the 7/4 section, or alternating 3/4 and 4/4, which I just now realized it didn't really click with me when I said 7, a long time ago during the reaction. But 7 is 3 plus 4, which is what we started with at the beginning. And we multiplied them at the beginning to get 12/8, which was our initial time signature. So here we're just going to add them together and do a bar of 3 and then a bar of 4 instead of trying to smash them and overlay them together. So all of that, it feels wild, but there's a reason to how the beginning of the song evolves. I kind of hope that it is 7 and that first time shift where I was feeling for, this 3 against 4, this 12 count phrase, I didn't get that, might have been 14, which would be, 7/4, counting eighth notes instead of quarter notes, which would give us 14, 14/8. And, just like, from here, I don't think we ever entered anything outside of this. We either had 3/4, the 3/4 synergy, or a 7. There might have been a couple of places where they decided to extend or shorten the very last bar of an idea before moving into something entirely different, in which case I'm not going to pick up those because it's such a short, quick idea. But it's quite possible that some concepts, or I guess using different time signatures as transitions, that could have happened in some places. Um, but there's also time feel. The drummer is a master at this, bringing in slower triplets to make it feel like the song is dragging down or something like that. Wild polyrhythms. I couldn't even tell you what they were. Some sort of like, I don't know, quarter note five tuplet over the 7/4 that we're working with, that quarter note pulse. It just, there are sometimes the drummer is just on a completely different wavelength, and I have no idea how it ends up working. And I'll listen to it and I'll just be like, dude, what? Ah, this is a really good song to practice time signatures and time feels on. Not just playing, like definitely, if you want to get good at writing weird time feels, or making things feel very jostled like this, learn this song. But also from a compositional standpoint of just analyzing it to see what happens and how it all works together and stuff like that, because from a purely rhythmic perspective, this song is bonkers, but it works. There's definitely the odd jaggedness of some of these movements going from one time signature to another. They don't really go about that smoothly, and that is both the product of the time and the genre. I mean, Coinmancer just told us this was 25 years old, but it's not like prog metal heads today are working with any smoother of transitions. Some are for sure, but not everyone. It's one of my usual talking points with prog metal, is that some bands like the smoothness, which is what I enjoy, and some don't. Um, but yeah, just to analyze the moment to moment idea here and be like, okay, this guy's working in these tuplets. We got this dude over here on quarter notes. We got this weird triplet thing going on. And then all of this is like in a 7-beat phrase, and it all somehow works. It all connects together in a way that, you know, doesn't sound like a mess of noise. That's, if this is the kind of music you want to write or play, this is the really great masterclass in making things work that are a bit, wilder, to put it bluntly. Now, harmonically, they're also a bit all over the place. There are some passages that feel a bit more in the pentatonic metal stuff. Your very core standard metal sound on the guitars, the chord progressions, melody writing, and of course, a lot of this is mixed with a bit more of the expressive, expansive melody writing you'll hear on top of the pentatonic stuff. This is the cornerstone of Dream Theater, to take a simple 5-note chord, throw that in your, sorry, a 5-note key, and throw that on your chord progression. Whether that's a piano, or in this case, primarily the guitars, but then use an expanded key in your melody writing. And this allows you to transform that 5-note chord or 5-note key into anything that you want. You can place another 1, 2, 3, even 4, might get a little spicy there, notes to change the characteristics of whatever chords your guitars are playing. It is something that, like I said, Dream Theater has been doing forever. It is, to me, very much a prog metal sound. And I think they do it very well. They kind of take the vibe and feeling of a lot of these sections and mold them and manipulate them across the runtime of the song. And that was pretty much their main idea on this track until the end. We had a little bit of silence, and I thought the song was over. And I had even mentioned, like, oh, now we're going to go into the next song, because it didn't sound like it was over, but as far as I could tell, We should have been over. I got a minute ahead, I suppose. I felt like we had done 5 minutes already, though. But no, there was still a minute of music left, and we shifted over into Phrygian Dominant. And this has a very distinct sound to it, at least for me. I'm not the greatest at picking out modes and chords and stuff like that, but Phrygian is a sound I can always pick out. It's probably because it's my favorite mode, so that always helps. And we went to Phrygian Dominant, which has a little bit of spiciness to it, and it's, yeah, very interesting to hear them go in this direction. They hadn't touched on it at all in this song, exploring mostly, I would say cooler, both in like temperature and coolness factor. How awesome does it sound for their harmonic resonance? And here they went with Phrygian. But the thing is, too, is that Phrygian shows up a lot in progressive metal, and I'm kind of curious where that began. Like, if there's a mode that we get into the most in progressive metal, it's going to be Phrygian. Um, and if this is so old, right, 25 years old, this would be 2000, give or take. 1999, maybe? 1999. They probably weren't the first band to do it, but now it makes me wonder. Who is the first progressive metal band to do it in a way that sounded still distinctly metal? And were they the ones who kick started it all? Because it's been done to death now, and I love it. Like I said, it's my favorite mode. I'm glad to hear it, but I'm just kind of curious about that. Anyways, yeah, the ending comes out of nowhere. New rhythmic ideas, new musical ideas, new harmonic ideas. It's wild. Vocals. This vocalist has chops. Has more of that classic style of belting that we would hear with the wide vibrato, stuff that you would hear in, as I mentioned, Dream Theater and Queensryche. There's a lot of heavy metal, though, that uses this vocal style. It feels like older metal, totally. I know Cornmancer had mentioned that it still feels modern to them, but the vocals to me are a dead giveaway. I will say everything else can feel a bit modern. The rhythmic element, even the production is rather clear and clean for a 1999 album, but the vocals, dead giveaway. If I hear that in any music, especially progressive metal, I'm gonna think it's either retro revival or it's a much older work, and it's definitely the most dated element of it. But they're good. There's lots of good air pressure behind them, body resonance. The vibrato is beautiful. It's pretty much perfectly in pitch all the time. 1999, I'm trying to think how advanced the pitch correction would have been at the time, and I'm gonna say that this is mostly all vocals, like all original vocals, nothing modified, at least nothing in the pitch. I'm sure there's some EQ and compression put on it, the usual stuff. But I mean, this dude's he's got a voice, and it's so good. Um, I got to point that out. Speaking of just really great instruments, too, can we talk about that bass a little bit? Cool bass lines, moving ideas, counterpoint to the guitars at times. It's big. It's a big tone. It's punchy. But when we get to that bridge, and we start doing a little bit of the guitar solo there, right before the guitar solo, that bass, single note, boom, 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 boom. It's just this very punchy sound. And I have to use punchy because I want that P plosive sound at the beginning of it, because that's what the bass sounds like to me. It is a weird eruption of tone that I can't say I've heard in a lot. It's EQ'd in a way to really emphasize that roundness on the attack that you get from finger playing, from not using a pick. It's less abrasive, but just as large, and Yeah, dude, it is a tone. I don't know if I'm 100% on board with it specifically. It feels a bit too prominent sometimes, but it is, it sounds good in isolation. Um, and I kind of want to start using bass tones similar to it, at least in its size. It is humongous. It takes up so much space, and it sounds phenomenal. I do like how that bigger sound is primarily used when the bass is doing something simpler, and when it does something a bit more complex, it lightens up a little bit so that it has a little bit more room, can be more dexterous. It's really great production from that standpoint, ensuring that the bass sounds the way that it needs to at each moment and depending on what it's doing. Um, I mean, everything else, I don't know that I have a strong of enough grasp on this song to talk about anything else. Structure is bonkers. I do know that we have some stuff at the beginning, maybe a verse chorus structure. I'm not entirely sure. Then we have the bridge, the solo section, the guitars come in. We hear a little bit of that. That was crazy. Then we have the Phrygian moment, which geez, what just call this a D section? I mean, it's kind of still part of the bridge, but it's its own thing. And then we end on something that I think is a variation of something we explored earlier. It sounded familiar, but not like something I'd heard, like 100%. I'm not sure what to make of that either. It's a neat little callback, I suppose, a way to bring the song to an end by connecting it back elsewhere, but I'm not entirely sure what it connected to. I would definitely need a couple more run throughs on this song to have a stronger grasp on it. But just after a first time listen, I'm sold. I wish I could find a better version of this. I may just end up having to track a CD down if I can. But the thing is I don't know if I'd want to listen to it multiple times. This, just judging from this track, because I honestly don't remember anything from the last song we listened to. But, as they said, it's been years, a couple years at least since they requested it. Um, just judging based off this one song, it feels like something I would want to listen to once, maybe twice, because the first time's just going to be a blur, a blur of wild ideas. Maybe a second time to get a grasp on it, but it isn't the kind of music I would put on infinite, infinite spins where I just can't take it out of my CD player. It's a song that demands a bit more attention from me. It's a bit more draining from that perspective, and it's more cerebral. It's a lot easier to throw on like a Transformers film, just a popcorn action flick, and watch that sort of half paying attention for your 100th time, than to put on an intense like David Lynch film or something. That's going to require some attention, some energy. It's not something you can just put on every all the time. Watch it 100 times in a week or something like that. And this is definitely more on that cerebral side where I don't know how much I'd revisit it. So I don't know if it'd be worth the purchase, especially if that money doesn't go towards the band, which is another thing. How available is it? I don't know. We're getting outside of the reaction and analysis. I'm just sort of rambling about stuff now. Let me dive into. Oh, can I find lyrics? Let me see if I can find some lyrics for this, and then we're going to wrap this video up. And Metal Archives comes in clutch here. I found their website, and it doesn't say anything except for A Skeptic's Universe, which is the name of the album. 20 years. That's it. Just that one line of text, white text on black background. I reloaded it a couple times, honestly, thinking that maybe it just wasn't pulling all, the whole HTML in or something. I don't know. Metal Archives has it, though. 12 lines. This doesn't seem accurate. Maybe there's some repeated stuff in here, but I'm just going to read all 12, being it so short. Life as it seemed to the circling man as he gazed into discarded land was a ride on a carousel of faith. Then he flew away. He traveled far through his worn-out mind, through sorrow and pain what had he gained? Still his dreams they could never take away, so he flew into the sun again. Emptiness struck as he realized there's no answer to who am I? What am I? He then saw why men must construct for themselves a cloud of unknowing. I don't know what to interpret from this. It feels a bit more philosophical than I'm ready to interpret at the moment, but it is about um, I don't know. I have this lot, right? He flew into the sun. So we have like some Icarus stuff in here. He flew into the sun again, though. So I don't know. I really don't. It's supposed to be talking about difficulties of life, of understanding, but like a broader sense of understanding. Not necessarily our place in the universe, but what exactly we are. To construct a cloud of unknowing. Right? It's about identity within a world. But that world mostly being one built on faith that our narrator doesn't believe in, and one of sorrow and pain which our narrator does not wish to partake in anymore. They feel disillusioned with the world, with society, with the way things work, and so they elect to eject themselves constantly. But despite this, they still don't know who they are. If you just reject everything, then what are you? A contrarian, but do you have an identity? I don't know. I have like these vague ideas, and it's hard to articulate them, especially since I don't even know if I'm on the right track here. Um, yeah, I think that's gonna wrap this one up. The chaos of the lyrics, the uncertainty of it all, even the odd rhyme and rhythm to it. It doesn't really work poetically, and it makes me want to listen to it again to see what syllables get stretched out so that every line can take up the same amount of time. But it works better, I think, as spoken word than rhythmic poetry. So even that's a bit awkward, and this works really well with the temporal elements of the song. It does make me question more of the end, though. The decrescendo into basically nothing before coming back with this random out of nowhere Phrygian section before revisiting something from earlier in the song. What does that have to do with identity? Those are my thoughts. Spiral Architects Cloud Constructor off of the Skeptics universe. Let me know what you thought, though. Is there anything that stood out to you on this? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have a completely different take or perspective on this song. Put all that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you can find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. I am a bit wiped out right now. I'm glad that my reaction and analysis part of my work is done for the day. I don't know that I could. I don't know if I have the mind power to dig into another song. Dang, that was intense. I'll be back tomorrow though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.